The ring announcer for a wrestling match can be seen introducing the candidate for tonight's Rumble. On one side, there's a guy named Boa, and on the other side, there's his opponent, called Python. The fight begins and both men are off to a rumble. On the VIP seat is Broddick, a multi-millionaire casino owner, and his girlfriend Eve. Meanwhile, some men under the supervision of a man named Raymond can be seen somewhere in Philadelphia loading up a truck and getting ready to move. Back at the wrestling center, Eve is still getting down to some fun with Broddick when he gets a call from Ramon. Ramon informs Broddick that his package has arrived from South America and will be delivered pretty soon. Broddick, who is pleased with Ramon, then offers to compensate Ramon finally for his job. During the journey, some kind of creature that has been sealed at the back of the truck awakens and starts rocking the truck. The convoy is stopped and Ramon is alerted about the creature being awake. He then gets a tranquilizer gun and asks for the panel to be opened. The guy hesitates but does as he's told anyways. Just as the panel gets opened, a reptile-like tail slips out and trashes the nearby men. The men then start to fire in a disorderly manner in an attempt to hit the creature. Unfortunately, during the process of firing, a stray bullet manages to hit the main control button on the back of the truck. This action causes the main door of the container to open, revealing an unusually large, reticulated python measuring about 80 feet long. The snake escapes and starts to devour the men one by one. Ramon, who thinks dynamite is the best idea to get rid of the creature, lights one up and sets the timer really close. Unfortunately, he gets hit, causing him to drop the dynamites. The bomb explodes, killing everyone but the cunning python. After the wrestling in which Broddick's candidate, the python, wins, he boards his private jet with Eve heading back to Philadelphia. That evening, while Eve is taking a bath in the private jet, a snake sneaks up on her. She then grabs the baby anaconda and storms up to Broddick. While she's ranting about her hatred for snakes, Broddick reveals his master plan of bringing in a big game hunt to the city. Don't get alarmed, this is usually Broddick's way of passing the time with the guys. Only this time, their game is one of a kind, and that one of a kind happens to be the python from earlier. Eve then agrees to join in the big hunt, which makes Broddick excited. But their makeout session is interrupted by a call from the truck company Ramon had leased a truck from. Customer care informs Broddick that they haven't heard from the driver, and none of the men are taking their calls. Broddick then hangs up before she can say anything else. Just then, Broddick sees a news report talking about the destruction of Ramon's convoy and the cause of the team's death. Realizing that his python has escaped, Eve suggests she calls the guys and tells them the hunting is off, but Broddick tells her that they won't be calling it off. Rather, they'll be rescheduling the date and location of the hunt. At the scene of the crime, FBI agent Alan Sharp can be seen already investigating. While checking out the large truck, he finds a large snake scale and a trail that leads to a nearby access tunnel to the Philadelphia water treatment plant. Meanwhile, at the Philadelphia water and power supply plant, some men are at work when they suddenly get attacked by the python. Back at the crime scene, a deputy approaches Sharp to inform him that he received a report about being attacked by a giant snake in the water plant. Now realizing what they are up against, Sharp wants to avoid more people from getting hurt. So he immediately devises a plan and requests to see marine biologist Monica Bonds. Somewhere in Miami, Florida, Monica is at a pool party. She makes a bet with the partygoers on who can hold their breath the longest. The people then nominate who they believe is their best bet to challenge Monica. Unfortunately, Monica finds her way around the challenge, making her victorious. As she's busy collecting her prize money, she's approached by a messenger from Sharp, who informs her that Agent Sharp needs to meet her urgently. Soon, she sits in a car with Sharp as they drive into Elkins, West Virginia, to meet Dr. Stephen Emmett, a herpetologist. The duo arrives at Long Green Snake Reserve, where they meet Dr. Emmett. Emmett then shows them his latest 70-foot genetically enhanced scarlet boa constrictor named Betty. Sharp then briefs them about the current situation and suggests that they'll attach Monica's dolphin camera headgear and tracking system to Betty in hopes that Betty will hunt down the python. Emmett initially disagrees with being part of the plan, especially not putting Betty in danger. But Sharp manages to strike a reasonable deal that convinces him to join anyway. Meanwhile, Broderick and Eve welcome the rest of the party members for the hunt. Tex from the Lubbock, Mr. Foley, the military's greatest sniper, Mr. Danner and his wimpy son, James, and finally Littlefield, the master huntsman. They all board Broderick's private jet, where Broderick reveals to them that this time they'll be brought to the hunt, unlike the previous times where the hunt was brought to them. The men then make a toast to the upcoming hunt. Back at Lawn Green Snake Reserve, Monica proceeds to surgically implant the tracking system and headgear in Betty, with Emmett's assistance. Immediately after the procedure, Sharp orders that the snake be sent out, but Emmett declines, saying Betty needs to recover. But that's when Sharp gets a call that some teenagers were attacked by the snake and a missing reporter, causing Sharp to lash out at Emmett. The two then get into a small argument regarding Emmett's love for snakes. They then come to the conclusion that both snakes are to be captured alive. However, Sharp makes it clear that if it comes down to choosing between saving human lives and the reptiles, then he'll definitely side with his own species. Meanwhile, Broderick and the guys have begun their hunt. On the other hand, Sharp, Monica, and Emmett have joined hands with a backup team of FBI agents and the U.S. Army. Sharp is informed that the man behind the release of the python is Broderick, whom people refer to as a notorious big game hunter. Betty and Emmett are transported to the water treatment facility, while Sharp accompanies the soldiers to set the boa loose into the water systems. Immediately after Betty is set loose, Monica gets feedback from her tracking system, which proves to be flawless at first. But when they pack their gear and meet at the tunnels to start tracking the snakes, the tracking system proves faulty, as it can only provide limited coverage. They soon lose sight of Betty and the python. While they're busy arguing about Monica's equipment, the soldiers decide on their own to catch the python, bag it, and get out of there quickly. After a while of talking, the trio realizes that the soldiers are nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Broderick's team is having a bit of an issue with Foley taking off, claiming that they can't let Broderick have the first kill on their big game while Tex runs after him. Eve reports to Broderick, so instead of hunting for the python, the team tries to regroup. As Tex runs after Foley, he tries calling the idiot who wouldn't listen to him. Unfortunately, Tex gets attacked by the python. Honestly, he should have just minded his own business in the first place. Broderick later finds Foley and asks where Tex is, but Foley claims that Tex was gone when he came back. Broderick then reminds him of the two rules about his hunt. 1, to never leave his team, and 2, to stay away from his girlfriend, whom Foley has had his eyes on since he saw her. Foley then attempts to size up to Broderick when they suddenly hear gunshots from a distance. Broderick asks who's firing, and Danner tells him that James has the game on the run. After firing aimlessly and even wasting a grenade, Broderick and the others arrive at the scene to find out that they're chasing a hare and not a python. Broderick gets infuriated, and he's about to start yelling when Eve joins them and informs them of the snake's location. Broderick then suggests that they head back to the jet, reload, and grab a map to the tunnels so they can track down the python. Meanwhile, in the tunnel, the soldiers have decided to play hero and ignore Sharp's commands. Monica manages to get a brief signal back and realizes that both snakes are currently in the tunnels, with one moving faster than the other, which means that either the python or the soldiers could be in danger. And obviously, the ignorant soldiers turn out to be the ones in danger. Sharp orders Emmett to pull the trigger, which is supposed to dish Betty about 80,000 volts to knock her out, but Emmett tells them to shoot the pipes instead. And by shooting the pipes, the soldier will be able to use the steam as cover. So that's what the soldiers resort to. Luckily, they're able to make it out alive, but have lost 2 members due to foolishness. Meanwhile, Broderick and the team are getting ready to continue when Eve complains about her gun. Broderick then offers her his gun and switches over to a flamethrower gun. You know, just to spice things up. The team then heads into the tunnel to find Broderick's python. On the other hand, Monica, Emmett, and Agent Sharp take 5 at a spot in the tunnel, where Monica and Emmett start talking about why they work with dolphins and snakes, respectively. During their small talk, Emmett reveals how he lost his little sister when he was only 6. According to him, she was bitten by a snake, and the local doctor didn't know what to do about it, And before his dad could rush her to the nearest hospital, which was 15 miles away, the little girl passed away. So he took it to himself that he would make an anti-venom to help those who would eventually find themselves in his sister's shoes. Thus, his obsession with snakes and his research. Sharp then interrupts their little talk, saying they need to get moving. Monica checks her signal and realizes that Betty is sitting still while the python has approached her. From the looks of things, Betty and the python are in a region of the tunnel that Emmett suggests can be sealed off to easily contain both reptiles. But Sharp reminds him that someone will have to volunteer to be trapped in the tunnels with them in order to sedate the two snakes. Emmett, however, has another plan in mind. He suggests that they flush the system so both snakes will be taken right where they want them to be. Sharp buys the idea and immediately passes the order to the soldiers. As their plan is set in motion, Monica realizes that the boa and the python are now in the same vicinity. But Mr. Python appears to be getting busy with Betty, who's trying to fight back. Meanwhile, Braddock splits his team into two, one with Danner, James, and Fowley, and the other with Braddock, Eve, and Littlefield. Danner's team enters the tunnels, which the soldiers are planning to flood. Monica detects them and informs Sharp, thinking it could be their soldiers. Emmett then suggests that they go and get whoever it is out of the tunnel. As the trio arrives at the tunnels, Sharp is mistaken for the python by Fowley, who shoots him dead. Fowley then tries to escape, but is caught by the python and eaten. Danner too tries to attack, but is killed. With no choice left, Emmett drags Monica out of there and tries calling out to a distraught James, who has already accepted his fate. The water soon floods the place, killing James and sweeping them away. Braddock and his team are at the opposite end of the tunnel, where they stumble upon a nest of eggs. Eve then picks up one of the eggs and tells Braddock that his snake didn't come to play, but to build a nest. But there's a catch. The snake Braddock ordered is not female. Just then, Betty shows up unexpectedly, and she's so not happy about Eve picking up her egg. Braddock asks Eve to drop the egg quietly and move away while they're ready to shoot. But out of fear, Eve accidentally drops the egg, causing Betty to constrict Eve, killing her and Littlefield. This also causes Braddock to snap as he starts firing at Betty. He then promises Eve that he will get the boa for her. Meanwhile, Emmett and Monica are still on the run from both the python and the flooding tunnels. At some point, when the duo realizes that the python is on their tail, they both jump into the water to take cover. While inside the water, Emmett loses oxygen, but can't come up because he would get caught by the python. Monica then gives him the kiss of life, allowing Emmett to get enough air in his lungs to sustain him. Afterward, they resurface with the python long gone. Monica then dives back into the water and luckily finds an exit for them. She informs Emmett about it, and they both dive back in to get to the exit. After reaching the safe zone, Monica tells Emmett to choose between going after the two snakes or calling it a day and getting out of there. On their way out, the duo meets Braddock, who gets confronted by Emmett with his fists. Braddock then tries to attack him, but is immediately apprehended by the FBI. Meanwhile, the python manages to find Betty's eggs and starts devouring them, enraging Betty. Monica and Emmett are in convoy with the FBI agents, who are already aware of Sharp's situation. They are informed that their equipment has been moved to their camp in Philadelphia, where they'll be arriving in 10 minutes. At the camp, Monica gets the system to start functioning again. There they find out about Betty's nest. They also find out about the python eating her eggs, and Betty not being able to retaliate. While they're all fixated on the system, Braddock escapes the camp. With all the commotion going on, Emmett finally decides to go back to the plant to save Betty's nest, and Monica agrees to go with him. They track Betty's location to a nightclub, where the python smashes through the floor during an intense battle of revenge for devouring her eggs. The club is immediately thrown into chaos as the python starts to attack. To make things worse, Braddock arrives and starts throwing flames at the python. He sees Monica and Emmett and fires at them as well, causing Emmett to drop his gun. The soldiers also arrive at the scene, but Braddock sets them all ablaze. More soldiers soon arrive, and just when Monica is almost attacked by the the soldiers create an opportunity for her to find a spot to take cover with Emmett. The python tries to get to them, but Betty breaks through the ceiling and attacks the python. Meanwhile, Broderick is out of firepower and switches over to a gun. But before he can shoot, Emmett fires a lethal tranquilizer at him, rendering him immobile. Both snakes then grab Broderick, ripping him in half during a tug of war, each devouring their half. The two snakes then continue their battle, which eventually leads them to a subway track. Betty has the upper hand in the fight, but a train is about to hit both reptiles. Left with no choice, Emmett activates the electrical spike device that delivers a shock so powerful that it knocks Betty off the tracks just as the speeding locomotive rams into the poor python, beheading the reptile. With that, the duo rejoices for having destroyed Python, but Emmett is sad that he killed Betty. They hug and turn to look at Betty, only to realize that she has crawled away. Later that night, the duo heads back to the water facility to find Betty and her eggs and to bring them home. Monica comments that they make a good team, and Emmett tells her that Betty makes 3. The two of them then head for the access tunnels together. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2004 movie Boa vs. Python by David Flores, starring David Hewlett, Jamie Bergman, Kirk B.R. Waller, Adam Kendrick, and Angel Boris. So what do you think? Could there have been another way to contain the python without harming Betty? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. And until next time,